We're working together and we're collaborating and addressing the issues that we brought up in the reports.
Tonight, events continue throughout Canada to raise awareness about MMIWG2S+.
We're just pushing them to stay true to their promise and immediately implement a guaranteed livable basic income.
MP Leah Gazan calling on the Trudeau government for a guaranteed livable basic income.
People end up homeless for multiple different reasons.
And advocates for the homeless in Montreal are struggling to meet demands and are asking for help. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Red Dress Day brought the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls to the forefront of Canadians' minds. And over the past week, Saskatchewan has been holding walks to honor those who are no longer with their families. Our reporter Rachel May spoke with local organizations about the importance of Red Dress Day.
Well, first of all, it starts with not denying that issue is there. It's there, it's relevant, it's something that's happening every single day.
Sindel Kozar is a support worker at the Margaret Riel Centre in Melfort. The centre helps anyone needing support with mental health, homelessness, addictions, or parenting issues. Last Friday, the centre organized an event to honor those who went missing and lost their lives. Crystal Mann is the wellness coordinator for the centre. She is proud of the work they do to keep women safe.
Learning and educating and getting better mental health services for themselves to eliminate that chance of being vulnerable.
The Prince Albert Grand Council held their Red Dress Day events this weekend at the Riverbank in Prince Albert, where there are acknowledgements and monuments for missing and murdered Indigenous women. The council's Health and Social Development Director, Shirley Woods, says to address women losing their lives, we need to address the underlying issues.
When we're seeing increasing drug use, which we know definitely impacts violence in our communities, we know that poverty does. People's economic situations. And so it's a much larger issue that we have to look at it more holistically and just to be aware of that.
Dorothea Swiftwolf is the Saskatoon Police Service's missing person liaison.
Keep in mind, when we talk about our missing and murdered loved ones, that's somebody's heart, somebody's spirit that we're talking about, and that family's walking through life without that piece of their heart and spirit.
Swiftwolf says the most important thing to remember is that all of those who are either missing or murdered are part of someone's family. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Meanwhile, in Yellowknife, it was a day of reflection and action on the impact of systemic injustices for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and 2S LGBTQIA+ people. Our reporter Charlotte Moore Jacobs has more.
This sacred fire is lit in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, 2S LGBTQIA+ people. Behind it, a monument dedicated to Inuvialuit, Dene, and Métis of the North, a symbol of the lives taken and the inequities that persist. A large crowd is gathering at the legislature in Yellowknife to honor Red Dress Day. Executive Director of Gender Equity with the GNWT, Sabet Biscay, challenges everyone to get to know the survivors and families.
When you know somebody better on a more intimate level, it's more difficult to be indifferent towards that person. Find out, get their names, find out about them.
Many carry signs, a reminder of the violence Indigenous women and girls face at home, in the workplace, and in the community.
It hits home for us because Charlene's a member of my husband's family, and when she was 15 years old, she went missing in and around Betchico, and there's still no sign, and we just wish people would speak up and tell what they saw, because somebody saw something, somebody knows something.
Executive Director of the Yellowknife Women's Society, Renee Sanderson, helped with a recent research report on unhoused Indigenous women in Yellowknife and the RCMP. It outlined how Indigenous women experience discrimination, distrust, under protection and fear in the community. Now, RCMP are on site to march with supporters.
We're working together and we're collaborating and addressing the issues that we brought up in the reports. I think we still have a long ways to go, but it's nice to see them a part of the community, and that's what we wanted from the beginning, to be a part of the community, to understand the challenges that our Indigenous people face.
Sanderson is remembering her cousin Amber Tuckaroo, who went missing and was murdered outside of Leduc. The family still has not found justice.
The families that were left behind, and to grieve and to wonder why.
She says more needs to be done to show vulnerable women and girls are valued and protected.
I think we need more supports. In the Northwest Territories, we don't have a treatment program facility, we don't have a trauma center. All the individuals who want to get help in dealing with their trauma or to go on that healing path, they're referred south. And I think being displaced from your family, from your support group is challenging. We also need, adequate housing, affordable housing. A lot of individuals who go away for treatment, they come back and they don't have a place to stay.
The Red Dress event is concluding with speeches and a lunch at the Tree of Peace. Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
To Ottawa now, where senators continue to look at the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. During a committee today, UNDRIP recognizes Indigenous peoples' rights and interests and involves meaningful involvement of Indigenous peoples on matters that affect them. However, the discussion today turned to identity theft. Manitoba Senator Mary Jane McCallum said she is troubled by people self-identifying as Métis. She said without verification, Canada has allowed Métis to be involved in claims without question to land, resources, and development. Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand says that's why his organization and the Chiefs of Ontario are hosting an identity theft summit in Winnipeg next week. Chartrand then accused the Métis Nation of Ontario of cultural appropriation.
There's now a full nation attempt by Ontario to steal who we are. They're taking our beadwork. They're taking our infinity flag that flew in 1816, the first battle in the prairies. They're taking our heroes. They're taking our Red River. Why do you think it's called the Red River Jig? Where do you think it comes from? Red River. Where's the Red River fiddle come from? Red River. The Red River cart. Red River. But now they're symbolizing and carrying that around, saying that's they're there.
An NDP MP is pushing the Trudeau government to establish a guaranteed livable basic income. Winnipeg MP Leah Gazan spoke at a press conference in Ottawa on Tuesday morning to promote her private member's bill, C-223. It was introduced in the House of Commons in December 2021. Gazan says adoption of the bill would help eradicate poverty and improve health and educational outcomes. She also notes such a basic income is called for in the final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls.
Every single party in this House has been very clear and explicit that they support all the calls for justice. Call for Justice 4.5 calls on the government to put in place a guaranteed livable basic income for Indigenous peoples and all other Canadians. We're just pushing them to stay true to their promise and immediately implement a guaranteed livable basic income.
To the Ontario legislature now, where the Chiefs of Ontario marched into the hallways of Queen's Park alongside NDP MPP Saul Mamakwa to protest against the provincial and federal governments denying them equal access to justice. And they've launched a constitutional challenge on the matter. The challenge alleges both governments do not provide enforcement and prosecution services to First Nations, nor do they provide enough funding to hire band enforcement officers or prosecutors. The Chiefs also point to Ontario's Community Safety and Policing Act, which took effect on April 1st, that explicitly excludes the enforcement of First Nations bylaws from mandatory policing duties. They say because of this, First Nations cannot combat addiction, banish dangerous people, regulate tenancy and evictions, or stop the dumping of waste in their territories.
We have drug trafficking, we have organized crime, human trafficking, and when you see the way human trafficking is tied into murdered or missing Indigenous women and girls.
Add us in there and enforce our laws. Otherwise, you're leaving our women and children vulnerable.
We always want to hear what you have to say about anything you see here. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Time to step aside for a quick break. Still to come, struggling to meet the demands and the overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples on the streets of Montreal.
It's not that easy, it's hard. You have to find your resources, you have to find where you could sleep.
Welcome back. Well, here's something you don't see every day, especially in Nunavut, where a large international passenger plane had to make a sudden stop earlier today. An Air France Boeing 787 Dreamliner flying from Paris to Seattle had to suddenly divert its course and land at Iqaluit just before noon today. after the flight crew declared an emergency at 36,000 feet. According to Air France, there appeared to be a heat smell in the cabin. In a statement, Air France added, customers have disembarked and technical checks on the aircraft are underway. These checks will determine whether the aircraft can continue its journey to Seattle or whether solutions need to be found to reroute customers as quickly as possible. There is no word yet on the plane's status yet or if passengers will stay overnight in Iqaluit. The particular plane can seat up to 250 passengers. Montreal's homelessness advocates often say they struggle to meet needs. And a new report by an Indigenous-led organization explores these gaps and how they affect the city's overrepresented Indigenous homeless population. Maricela Amador has that story.
Usually just plant here, 3 inches deep.
Simeon Nuya enjoys coming to this garden in the middle of bustling Montreal.
That's how we usually do it.
He gets to touch the earth and find community, which is important to him since he's been living in a shelter off and on for 15 years.
It's not that easy. It's hard. You have to find your resources. You have to find where you could sleep, where you could hang out during the day.
Nunya, who arrived from Nunavut 29 years ago, is now part of a collective that supports the homeless population in the city.
We started an outreach program, harm reduction. So we hand out like crack pipes, crystal meth pipes and stuff because a lot of people are addicted to drugs. So we want to make sure that they don't get diseases.
And although these services help, Nunya said more resources are continuously needed.
Where I'm staying now, it's like in the same building as the water shelter. And I think like we need more bigger space so that we can have more people in there because there's like a lineup for to get into that program.
A report by the Montreal Indigenous Community Network highlights many of the ongoing gaps that affect the urban Indigenous population.
I didn't realize the pictures Katya used for this. They look really nice.
Leilani Shaw, the executive director of the network, said the report provides a comprehensive portrait of the needs observed by frontline workers over the last few years.
It is really important to continuously put pressure on these systems, but also to remind the current systems and structures that are in place that they are not doing enough and they are not adapted to our community and what we need in order to thrive.
Shaw hopes the report becomes a resource for organizations and governments moving forward.
People end up homeless for multiple different reasons, whether they are coming to Montreal to receive different services like healthcare, education, mental health services, and more. And through no fault of their own or for many different reasons, they can end up trapped here.
According to the report, Indigenous peoples make up about 12% of Montreal's visible homeless population, despite comprising only 0.6% of the city's total residents.
So this is where the apartments are going to be.
Stacy Boucher-Anthony is the executive director of Indigenous Project Quebec.
We rent it out for 5 years.
An organization offering, among other services, a wet shelter in downtown Montreal.
There's currently 14 bedrooms in there and shared spaces.
She said that overrepresentation of Indigenous people experiencing homelessness in the city is not new, nor is the constant struggle organizations face for funding.
La prévention, là, c'est ce qui est payant. Puis la prévention, c'est sûr qu'on ne voit pas les résultats dans l'immédiat. Ça prend des années, des générations. Mais c'est ce qui est payant comme société de miser sur la prévention. C'est de s'assurer que les familles aient assez de support pour pouvoir bien vivre. C'est de s'assurer que les enfants soient supportés.
Nuya struggles with alcoholism. The services he needs most are those that help his recovery.
I'm still in the process of healing myself, but it took a long time for me to get to this point. Going to the elders and seeing, that helped me out a lot.
Nuya hopes to leave a life of addiction behind, but needs the help from initiatives such as addiction counseling from an Indigenous perspective that currently are in need of more funding. Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Montreal.
Thanks, Maricela. A new episode of Face to Face airs tonight, right here after the news. We've got a preview for you after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. It's that time of year for many Canadians who encounter Canadian geese in towns and cities, including Carrie Slack, who shared this picture. Carrie sees them every day on her morning commute. If you have a picture to share, send your photos to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 17 for Halifax, showers and 16 in Fredericton. 6 above in Kuujjuaq, rain and 4 in Nain. 12 with showers in Montreal, cloudy and 14 for Val-d'Or. 13 with rain in Sault Ste. Marie, showers and 11 in North Bay. A cloudy 14 above in Thunder Bay, 17 with rain for Sioux Lookout. 16 in God's Lake and Norway House. 22 in Winnipeg, 21 for Dauphin. 18 in Regina, 19 in Saskatoon. 17 for Meadow Lake and La Ronge. In northern Alberta, sun's out and 19 in Peace River, 18 under sunny skies in Grand Prairie. Showers and 15 for Edmonton, 10 in Lethbridge. Sun's out and 15 for Vancouver, a sunny high of 24 in Kamloops. Showers and 17 for Prince George, 12 with rain in Smithers. 5 and snow in Old Crow, 12 with showers in Whitehorse. 16 in Yellowknife, 18 in Wrigley. +1 in Sax Harbor, snow and 3 above in Pawatuck. -1 in Chesterfield and Whale Cove, 0 in Arviat. -11 in Resolute, +1 in Iqaluit. $175 Indigenous youth from across Canada are in Brant County this week for an intensive dance camp. They're prepping for an annual show held at Toronto's Meridian Hall. The CTV's Stephanie Davis tells us this is all part of a program focused on the importance of education and culture.
What looks like an ordinary room of young dancers is really something much more.
This is an opportunity for us to level the playing field and to give our Indigenous kids a step up in being able to compete with their peers in Canada.
The Outside Looking In program brings choreographers to Indigenous communities across Canada, teaching them hip-hop dances throughout the year.
I think the dance is really the hook, right? The kids want to be in the program and they know that they need to go to school.
For 17 years, the program has empowered kids to complete their high school education.
The on-reserve graduation rate is about 46%. The Canadian national mainstream rate is 91%. Outside Looking In has a 96% graduation rate.
It's all done through dance.
We're starting to incorporate more Indigenous cultural dance into the formations and even the music.
For some kids, joining the program helps overcome major obstacles.
I wanted to feel comfortable with myself as I was facing a lot of bullying because of how my body looked, because I have scoliosis.
Helping them feel better in their own skin.
I like dance because it gets me moving, but it's also like a fun way to express yourself.
They're spending this week perfecting their dances at a camp in Brant County before performing on May 10th at Toronto's Meridian Hall.
This year, I'm very confident in myself because it's like my third year now, and I'm kind of very, very excited and very kind of nervous about the show.
We worked hard all year and we finally get to showcase it.
Ready to share their culture and talent with the world. Stephanie Davis, CTV News.
A new episode of Face to Face is coming up right after our newscast. But you won't be seeing me in the chair tonight. Our guest host, Sav Jonesa, will be talking with writer and actor Katarina Zervogel. The 27-year-old has been making waves in the entertainment industry recently. Zervogel premiered her first co-written feature film last year and also starred in the Marvel miniseries Echo. She shares how being part of both the deaf and Indigenous community has shaped her work and identity.
You know, in the past, deaf people weren't really allowed to use their sign languages. They were taken from their families, going to other schools as well. And that's a similar experience to Indigenous culture, where, you know, the Indigenous groups were not allowed to kind of be with each other as well. And so there's a lot of similarities in there, and just seeing how that impact of language deprivation, and you see that in between both of those cultures. And so when I think about that and having both of those cultures within myself, I really start wondering, you know, how that impacted my identity.
Looking forward to it. You can catch that episode right here in less than 2 minutes from now. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For news anytime, though, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and subscribe to our APTN News YouTube page. Also, be sure to join us back here live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for your first APTN National Newscast of the day. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGwitch, thanks for tuning in. Stick around. Face to Face is next. Have a great night.